Hi, I'm Chris. Welcome to another episode of Geek Speak 2.0 with special guest co-host John, who will also be putting videos on the channel at a later date. Now, we'll jump straight into the news here. In a recent Q&A with J.J. Abrams, he has teased the fact that while Episode 7 did not contain images or any visuals of Rey's parents, that they are actually or they may actually be in her world somewhere that we haven't seen yet. What do you think of this, John?
Should be interesting to see what they do. Got a pretty expansive world to work with now that they've cut out everything from 6 onwards.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that they got rid of to make these movies possible.
Yeah, so it's going to be very interesting to see where they're going to go with it. It could be good. A bit nervous about it.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to see whether or not they'll actually reveal them in one of the upcoming movies, or whether they'll tie it in with one of the comic book series that they've got. Another news story is that there's a rumour floating around that the follow-up to the upcoming X-Men Age of Apocalypse movie will be a retelling of the classic Dark Phoenix tale or storyline from the X-Men comics. And this is something that a lot of people have done takes on, the most faithful being the 90s era X-Men cartoon, but it was also attempted in the X-Men 3, the previous X-Men 3 movie, and was quite honestly a pretty rubbish attempt at the story.
I've always thought that's been pretty rubbish myself. I mean, how many times can you tell the same story, really?
Well, this is one of their most iconic stories. I mean, it's basically the story of how Jean Grey got the Phoenix Force and basically saved reality and then almost destroyed reality because the Phoenix Force wasn't used to having human emotions. And it's really interesting to see how they, if this is true, how they do it, but also whether they go to the steps of actually killing off Jean Grey again, because we've only just been introduced to this character, so in this new line of X-Men movies, so it kind of doesn't make sense to go, here's this character, next movie, kill her off.
Yeah, there's no development there whatsoever.
Yeah. Now, in our third quick bit of news, James Cameron has announced that not only is he doing the one Avatar sequel, but he's in fact planning 4 Avatar sequels, with the first one due out in 2018 and then subsequently releasing follow-up movies every 2 years, which means the last one would be coming out in 2024, which by that point I believe James Cameron would be in his 70s. And, I mean, even those people who were introduced to Avatar 5 or 6 years ago, when it was like a big thing and a big gimmick, really, aren't really going to be that interested in it, a lot of them, because it is, as people have said, giant space Smurf Pocahontas.
Well, I think it's an interesting take. Avatar's definitely, I reckon there's more room for a second one, but I'm not sure where he's going to go with this story to drag it out with 4 sequels. I mean, how many times can you tell the same story, really?
Yeah,
it's got to be something different.
When he first announced that they were making a sequel, there was a lot of talk that instead of doing aliens invading the planet and the battle in the skies and the land, that they'd be taking it into the ocean and basically exploring the ocean of Pandora. So
where Be interesting to see where he's going to go with it. Like, is there going to be like a massive war now? Like,
yeah, I mean, they've only really focused on the one area and the one, basically that one fairly small area, roughly the size of a single American state. So they've got a whole planet to explore with other continents, oceans, pretty much a huge world that they could explore, and it's just a matter of finding interesting stories to fit into it.
I've got faith in James Cameron. I reckon it's going to be alright. I'll be looking forward to it. He's pretty good.
Well, he's
one of the
not exactly known for missteps.
Yeah.
Okay, now, as per usual, we'll jump into one of our bigger segments that is something I grew up with in my later childhood, and I know John grew up with, and we've had many conversations about over the years.
Yeah.
And that is Pokemon, and the fact that it is currently apparently searching around for a live-action adaptation in Hollywood, with leading studios of the studios that are in the lead to make this being Sony, Warner Brothers, and Legendary Pictures. Now, I earlier mentioned that Pokemon itself, the first two movies, the first movie and Pokemon 2000, were originally released in cinemas by Warner Brothers. So, personally, that puts me as that, in my opinion, makes them their front runners. But at the moment, it's looking like Legendary's the most likely to bring it out. And they're also the ones that are bringing out the upcoming Warcraft movie.
I'd probably peg one of them too. I don't think Sony's going to go for it.
No,
They don't seem like the type. I'd probably peg Legendary.
I wouldn't really peg Sony as having anything to do with it, for two reasons. One is that the games have all been either Nintendo or I think there was one or two PC ports for Pokemon. And the fact that every time Sony has gotten their hands on a big property or a fan favourite property like this, they've absolutely ruined it.
Yeah, they've just destroyed it. And Warner Brothers, they got rid of it, so...
Yeah. After having the first two movies, Warner Brothers just dropped it, so I'm not sure why they would be interested in picking up the live action, but when you look at the other properties that Warner Brothers has done in live action, they've got a half-decent track record. We just won't mention the recent Batman vs Superman.
It actually springs to mind, is it going to be rated G? Or is it going to be PG or even M?
Well, if it follows a lot of the animated movies, it will probably get closer to a PG. It depends on how much they go for realism, as to whether it goes up to an M, like some of the movies did, or even possibly higher if they go for the ultra-realistic and gritty, which seems to be the way of Hollywood at the moment.
It's a very current trend.
And our last story, which is a big shout out to all of our Batman fans and long-running fans of the comics, is that we will not have to wait until the R-rated DVD release of Batman vs Superman to get an R-rated Batman movie, with recent news that points to the fact that the upcoming animated The Killing Joke movie will most likely be R-rated, and will have classic actors coming back like Kevin Conroy as Batman and Mark Hamill as the Joker, both actors who have been portraying those roles since the early 90s.
Yeah, it should be good. It should be something to look forward to, definitely.
Yep, The Killing Joke, for those who don't know, is a very dark, very brutal origin story of the Joker. It's possibly the single most well-known Batman story from the comic books. And really, even though it's an animated series, Warner Brothers has really, really pulled off really good animated movies for the DC universe.
Yeah, definitely, like, they definitely have one of the best ways of doing their animated movies. Marvel's kind of more of a live action, whereas I think DC's definitely taken that way.
Well, you look at Marvel's animated fare, and up until recently, all you had was a 60s Spider-Man cartoon, a 90s Spider-Man cartoon, and a 90s X-Men cartoon. And that was it. And whereas DC has had, basically because of their cooperation with Warner Brothers, they've had at least one animated series running for the last 20 years. And they've had brilliant shows. Batman the Animated Series, Brave and the Bold, Young Justice, Teen Titans.
I think this is going to be very different to the Young Justice, Teen Titans fans out there. It's going to be a good one. I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, definitely. This is going to be a hell of a storyline, and the actual producer for Warner Animation and Digital Series has actually come out and said that he's told Bruce Timm, the producer of this series, to stay as true as possible to the comic book story and worry about the MPAA ratings once he's finished.
It's always good to see that.
Normally in Hollywood, when they're making something like this, the first thing they do is worry about what sort of rating they want the movie to be. And he's turned around and done the opposite and said, look, forget about the rating, just do it.
Just do it. Should be good.
So, I for one am looking forward to this a lot. It's due to debut at San Diego Comic-Con with an expected DVD release not long after, so I'll be looking for that in stores.
Me too. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a very good one to watch.
It should be wicked. Now, as is our habit, the last bit we'll do here is we'll do a quick final recommendation, which is something that we've seen or we've played or read or really enjoyed that we think that you as fans would also enjoy. My pick for this week, because of one of our earlier stories, I'm actually going to recommend the Pokemon games, because they are very much the whole JRPG style of gameplay, with basically they almost created their own genre of monster training and battling. The most recent ones are Alpha Ruby and Omega Sapphire, and they are brilliant retellings of the original Ruby and Sapphire games. But basically any of the Pokemon games from Red and Blue all the way up to these ones, they're great fun. I grew up with them, and they helped me make friends, and they're really just fun games. So that's my recommendation.
I'm probably going to recommend the Disgaea universe. So I'd start with, well, I've been following this universe for a long time now. It's very expansive, lots of content, lots of fun, lots of strategy involved.
Yep, quite a good anime based on the first game as well.
They actually made an anime of this based on the game. So it's quite a funny anime as well. So
quite a good game. If you want to give us any feedback on this episode, if you have any requests for a particular genre that you'd like us to recommend, or anything you'd want us to review, or you just want to jump in and have a chat with us, we'll have the links down below to our Facebook page and our Twitter account. And yeah, we'll love to hear from you, love to have a chat. We're always open. And until next week, have a good one.